Welcome back to another video, and as you can probably see from the image angle, we are going to be doing my half a yearly palette declutter today, and as you can probably guess, there is quite a lot of to go through. I will try to go through these in order so that we are first going to go through the high-end ones, then the drugstore ones, and then lastly we're going to go through the indie ones because I think the indie palettes is the most prominent category of eyeshadow palettes that I have in my collection. Disclaimer with these declutter videos, don't ask me to send you any kind of palettes. I don't send used makeup to sort of people I don't know, and also for the fact that pretty much like postal expenses even within European Union can be quite high, so that is why I don't give out used makeup on my channel for my viewers, and I also don't think it's too hygienic to give out used makeup to people you don't really know. And generally also I don't generally give also used makeup to my friends and family. If it's very lightly used, I might sometimes ask if someone wants it, but usually because of hygiene reasons I don't like to give out used makeup to anybody. Second disclaimer, no one needs this kind of a big collection, so obviously this is first and foremost a hobby for me, so I like collecting eyeshadow palettes and trying them out and reviewing them on my channel, but no one needs this amount of eyeshadow. I think that is something we should be clear of, and I think you should take these videos as always as just a form of entertainment. But let's start going through the palettes because there's quite a lot of go through, and I do think we are going to be... There are, I think, quite a few ones that we are going to be getting rid of today because I have, again, noticed during the previous half a year what kind of palettes I am gravitating towards to and what kind of palettes I think no longer have a place in my collection. Okay, so let's start out and maybe let's go to for this one. So this is the Tarte Big Ego palette. This is beginning to be one of their older palette. It has a bit more reflective packaging. I actually do like this one. I think this got a bit hit and miss reviews, but I am still gonna keep this around. This is also the only Tarte palette I have in my collection, so that's also the reason why it gets to stick around. Next one is truly a icon, so this is the Byredo Remembrance palette. This is not going anywhere. It's a very nice, smooth, high-end formula. If you like your luxury makeup brands, I do think Byredo, especially these big palettes, they do offer a good value. They launch these only once a year and they are pretty much a limited edition launch, so if there is a specific Byredo, this bigger palette that you want to get, I would always say that get them on launch because these do tend to, once they're gone, they are pretty much gone, but this is not going anywhere. Next, let's go to some of the minis, and actually from Dior, I do think we are gonna get rid of something. So, first one is, so this is the Holiday Quint from last year, and this gets to stay around. There is it's not a particularly diverse palette, but I do actually kind of like the rosy tone look you get with this one, so this is getting to stay. But this is I think this was called what was this one? Fiery Circus palette, so this was the Quint from this year. This has already been, this was one of the palettes that I recently did review on my channel. Unfortunately, I don't think this Quint, the quality, especially considering the price point, not something that I would recommend. I think this is probably, I did say it in my review video, this was probably the most expensive misbuy I made during this year, so this is getting decluttered. Then to my Dior Backstage palette, these are not going anywhere. This was Backstage's holiday palette from last year. Surprisingly, they didn't come out with a new Backstage 9 pan for this holiday season. They did come out with other sort of products within the Backstage line, but this one is from last year, and as I said, they didn't come out with a new one this year, and I actually like the quality of this one, so this gets to stay. Which one was this? So this was the Celestial Purple, I think. Okay, yeah, my camera is not cooperating today, so... then the summer palette from last year. I actually think that if you are into the color story of the Fiery Circus Holiday Quint from this year, but you don't want to obviously, or you actually want a sort of color story that works, I would then get this one. I do think you're actually able to maybe find this one in some stores still, so... this was the Warm Essentials, so basically I think this you can get in some Dior retailers, so if you're looking for a warm tone color story from Dior that works out, this is something that I would get. And then the one and only, I think this was the cool tone Dior Backstage that pretty much a lot of people were like eyeing. I did manage to get mine on launch, so this was the Silver Essentials. Unfortunately, this was a limited edition, so this you can't get, but this is not going anywhere. I actually do kind of like the color story of this one, and the quality was superb. Then this was Chanel's Holiday Quint from a couple of Christmases ago. This is not going anywhere. This was still Mirographique Quint, and I always say that this is good for a person who wants a cool-toned luxury quaint, but doesn't like their grays, so it kind of has more like, I would say, gray rust-leaning browns is how I usually describe this one, but that's not going anywhere. YSL Holiday Quad from last year. I think this was okay. I am gonna keep this one around. I do kind of like, there is like pretty much one specific like look that I can get with this one, and I do actually like the packaging. I do think this was a nice formula, but I don't think this might have not been the best of the YSL quads. I have heard that there's quite a lot of variation. I think there was 1 or 2 shades that I thought that were a bit on the drier side, but I still do kind of like the packaging and do like the color story, so this gets to stay around. Then what are we going to come next? Then there is one individual, so this is the NARS. Which one was this? This was the Afterglow Irresistible. I do think you can actually still get this one. I have seen this on most NARS retailers. It is quite of a monotone color story. It is very heavily warm tone leaning, but I actually do kind of like this one, and especially the shimmers, so this is getting to also stay in my collection. Then from LH Cosmetics, so this is a brand I tried this year, so these are by Linda Hallberg, who is a Swedish makeup artist. This is the Blomma palette. It's a very beautiful sort of pink-toned 9-pan color story, but this is one of those more, what I would say, sophisticated pink color stories, so it's not your on the nose. You can kind of get a bright pink look with this one, but there is actually quite a bit of variety you can get with this one, so this is not going anywhere. And this is one of her special shade quads. This was the Aurora quads. I think she has now 3 or 4 of these in her line. I do think especially that if you are kind of looking the sort of indie multi-chrome, but in a sort of like mainstream brand retailer, because LH Cosmetics is also sold in some brick and mortar makeup retailers, and obviously you can get this from their website. I do think these are very beautiful. They are more like duochrome shades, but these are very smooth, and they are, I think they would suit quite many more lid types compared to some of the like indie shimmers that can get quite chunky, but this is also staying. I did enjoy using this one. Then we have the 2 ABH palettes. So this is the Fall Romance. This is beginning to be very old, so this is a very grungy, I think for a mainstream high-end brand, quite a grungy fall tone color story. The shimmers are starting to feel dry. This actually was on my sort of makeup rotation during this fall. I did actually use this, but I think I'm gonna still keep this around, but I do think this is starting to show its age, but I do think as a sort of like fall color story, this is quite good. And this is one of ABH's Holiday 9-pans from last year. This is the Spice palette. The quality of this one was, I think, the best that ABH has yet to produce. I didn't get any of the 9-pans that she launched during this fall, because I don't think the shimmers are the same very beautiful sparkly shimmers that were in this Holiday palettes from last year, but I do keep this around because I do like the color story. Then we have a individual, so this is Sculpted by Aimee. This is a Irish-based makeup brand, and this is a sort of like all over our face palette. I actually usually take this around traveling. I do think the face shades in this one are actually better quality than the eyeshadow. The eyeshadow is quite meh, but I do keep this around because I have actually, like, even this year, every time I went traveling, I did pack this along, so I am definitely using it, so it gets to stay. Then another single brand, so my first time of trying Patrick Ta's eyeshadow. So this was the first of the like bigger palettes he originally came out with, so this is the sort of brownish neutral tone one. I like this surprisingly a lot. I was kind of thinking that, okay, I kind of have this color story and we are gonna soon have my Natasha Denona, I think, after this one, and then we're going to be making some hard choices, but basically I like the matte formula, especially in this one, much like very buttery. The shimmers were also very beautiful, and even though it's a very basic palette, I liked all the looks I created with this one, so this is staying. Hopefully, at least so far, mine is not moldy, because these palettes have a bit of a reputation, apparently, that the preservatives in them are not that good. Sorry about the reflective packaging in this one. Then from Huda Beauty, I don't think either of these are gonna go away. So Rose Quartz, we all know this is one of my OG favorite palettes. Mine is beginning to be a bit old. I think mine is still looking okay. This creamy shade is always something that kind of gets me freaked out that at what point is it gonna start growing mold. But as long as this palette is not growing mold or anything other like nasty things, I am keeping it because this is one of the like most beautiful color stories I think like Huda Beauty has generally produced, but also generally what has been done in terms of eyeshadow color stories. Then the Icy Nudes, I got this during last year when I was actually traveling. Not my favorite. There were quite a lot of things I wasn't such a fan of in terms of the formulations, and also considering that a lot of these matte shades ended up looking too samey to be in such a big palette, but I actually do still kind of like the look that I created with this one, so both of these are getting to stay. Are we gonna do my Natasha Denona next? I think it's better to do one because I think here we are gonna be doing some decluttering. So this is not going anywhere. This is actually the first mini that I have tried, which is surprising considering. So this is the Starlight palette, and I like this one a lot considering that it is again a very basic color story, but I do think that this was the same good quality that the big palettes are, and I do like this one, so this gets to stay. But then let's... Okay, so this is the warm neutral palette, and we're gonna actually maybe... Let's get the Patrick Tar one out, because I do think we might be... Are we on frame? We might be, or we might not be. I think we are kind of... I think we are can be quite honest that we don't need both of these in my collection. The Natasha Denona ones has more shades, but I have always said this, well, I do like Natasha Denona's palettes. I am not a fan of her matte formula. I do think it is a bit on the stiffer side. I do think the Patrick Tar formula in general was a bit more easier to work with. So, and I have always said that while I don't think in terms of quality there is nothing particularly wrong with the Natasha Denona's I Need a Warm, it is a palette that for some reason I just don't use even though I have it in my collection. So I think we are gonna let this one go, and I am gonna be keeping this one because, as I said, I was much more fan of the formula of this one. So we are decluttering this one purely because of the reason that for some reason this just constantly gets lost in my collection, and for some reason I just don't gravitate towards that one. Then the next one, so this is the Bloom palette, and this also... I was a bit disappointed with the formulation of this one, I'm gonna be honest, because these shimmers were a sort of throwback to the older shimmer formula that Natasha Denona has had, which is more of a, what I would say, a almost like metallic kind of shimmers rather than these very high shine shimmers that we're soon gonna see in the I Need a Nude palette. And this seems to be a theme where Natasha Denona constantly seems to change not only the, well, she also seems to change the shimmer formulas constantly, but also the matte formulas. But I also do kind of like this color story. This is very reminiscent of the Corda Rosa Sigma color story, which Corda Rosa as a palette holds a very special place in my heart, even though I did have to declutter it because some of the shades were causing issues on my eyes. This didn't cause any like irritation when I was wearing this on my eyes, so I do think the formula was a bit better, but yeah, I think because this is the closest thing I have for the Sigma Corda Rosa that I used to have in my collection a long time ago, I'm gonna keep it, even though, as I said, I'm not a fan of the shimmer formulations, and I very much wish that we could get the shimmer formulas that we got with this one, so this is definitely not going anywhere. This is the, I think, holy grail that Natasha Denona has ever done with her eyeshadow palettes. This has beautiful shimmer formulas. In terms of mattes, I would have maybe wished we would have gotten maybe bit more matte variety, because I do feel that this, I always say that I kind of ran out with mattes in this one, but it is still one of the most beautiful palettes that I think she has ever produced, and I really wish we could stick with the formulas that were in this one. Then to kind of oldies, so this is the pastel palette, and I have always said that this is definitely, it's not the best pastel quality that I have tried in terms of high-end palettes, and especially considering that some of the indie palettes we're gonna see later, this really much falls short, but I still... For some reason, I still do actually like this one, and especially because I kind of use it with this one, so this is the Cirque du Loco. I never use these palettes on their own, I actually kind of use them together because they kind of make good companion palettes for each other, so... even though, again, this has the more like older Natasha Denona formula, which maybe I'm not such a big fan of, especially comparing to some of her newer palettes, but these will get to still stay in my collection because I do actually end up usually during springtime using these two, but... Yeah, we did actually get rid of like one palette, which can be considered an achievement. Then this one, so this is the Danessa Myricks Lightworks, no, not Lightworks, what was this called? Groundworks 2, so this was the rosy toned one, so I think I should move this to my blush drawer, because this, I did try using this on my eyes and face, because this was kind of advertised as a one in an all palette, but I think, honestly, this is more of a cheek palette at the end. I did use the eye looks that I kind of got with this one. There was the issue that a lot of the shades ended up blending together. There wasn't enough, like, range unless you kept using this one and these two deepest shades. Otherwise they got pretty mixed in when you tried to use them on your eyes. So I think I'm just gonna move this to the other drawer, and on my cheek drawer this is probably gonna get more use as a blush palette, which I do think the shades in this one and as a blush shades, all of these shades do work out very well, but it's not going anywhere. Then the last of the high-end ones, I think these are the last ones. So my Pat McGrath palettes, these are not going anywhere, and also you can't get these in the formulations anymore because she no longer does the special shade. So if you buy these in completely like new, you are not gonna get the bake shades that I still have. So this is the Divine Rose 1. I have used this previously, I think a week or two ago, to a pre-Christmas party. This is a staple pre-Christmas party palette that I seem to use every year. I do like it. Then we have the Divine Rose 2, which is in the rose gold, very reflective rose gold packaging. This, I think, is where we kind of started going downhill with Pat McGrath in terms of the fact that I think every color story, except for the one that was released this year, but after this we started seeing a lot of pinks and golds getting repeated, and I think that was the point when people started sort of falling off from the brand. But since this is the original rosy and gold color story, this is definitely staying because I do still enjoy this one. And then we have the Utopian Dream. So I think I always say that this is a spring palette. Well, how do I open it? Here. So still kind of what I would say quite close to Divine Rose 2, but this does have, I'd say, more peachy leaning tones in it, and we do have the kind of fun lilac shade over here. But these are not going anywhere because, first of all, I spend a lot of money on these three, and I do actually tend to use them, even though in terms of formulas and how I think makeup has developed, especially in terms of eyeshadow after these were released, we have definitely gotten more improved and better formulations, but these two still have a very special place in my sort of heart. Then let's go to the indie brand. So first is P.Louise, which is a independently owned brand, even though I think, or wait, I did say we're gonna do drugstore first. So actually, yeah, no, let's go first to the drugstore ones and then go through the indie brands. So this is MUA, and I always say that if you're looking for good, inexpensive makeup at European drugstore, or especially at UK drugstores, MUA is very good. This is the Blush Nudes palette. The packaging very cheap, but especially the quality in this one very superb comparing to a lot of other, like especially more inexpensive and mid-range makeup I've tried. This is not going anywhere. Then we have the two of these minis, so we have the Stardust and Desert Bloom. These are also not going anywhere. I actually do, especially this one has been a favorite. I'm struggling to think, have I still used this one? Is this one of those palettes that constantly seems to be in my declutters where I say that I should use it, but I've never used it? I have to check, have I actually, because I have done a swatch video with this one on my sort of shorts in my channel, but I am still a bit unsure has this been on my makeup rotation, because we really need to start doing something about it if this one hasn't yet been featured in my sort of reviews. Makeup Revolution. So Makeup Revolution has improved their eyeshadow formulas, especially with these new Icon palettes. I still can't say about the quality of other palettes they come out with, but they have also... We are not getting as many eyeshadow palettes as we used to, because especially before pandemic, Revolution came out with a lot of big collections, and usually there was like a lot of eyeshadow palettes included, but they have definitely like pared their collections down, and also I think in terms of eyeshadow releases they've been like more focusing on other product categories because eyeshadow hasn't been that popping. But these new Icon palettes, these I do think are very good. So this is actually a relatively new one. So this is the Celestial Icon one. So this is a cool toned leaning, sort of like cool toned bluish purple leaning palette. I actually like this surprisingly a lot because actually a lot of the toppers in this one and the shades, they are kinda... They have something fun going on for them, so they end up looking a little bit different than on the pans, and I actually would say that if you're looking for a good cool tone color story at a drugstore, this could be a nice option. And then I think this is the like best quality from the Icon palette, so this is the true Icon, and this is a dupe for the Patrick Ta. One of the Patrick Ta's bigger palettes, the berry toned one, but I do actually think that this is quite good, like a alternative to it if you don't want to spend the Patrick Ta prices. The only thing that I'm not a fan of with these palettes are the cream formulas. These are the sort of emollient cream formulas that just crease your eyeshadow. They don't help, at least on my particular lip type, they don't help longevity, so I just ignore them. But the shimmers and matte shades in this one are beautiful, and this is definitely one of the better ones if you're looking to try one of these palettes. So next is Catrice. So this is the Dark Cocoa palette, and this was the one that they came out in their, I think this was in their winter spring edit, I think, during this year. This is actually, Catrice's eyeshadow formulas have been very hit and miss, and that is very unfortunate because it is one of the very few like quite widely available like drugstore brands in European drugstores. But actually this was very good quality compared to what we had seen from Catrice previously, so this is staying, and I do like kind of like the neutral undertones this has. This is a more recent review on my channel, so this was the Moira Lover Starlight palette, and this has a neutral mauvish color story. The background kind of maybe gives the implication that it's a more of a pinkier color story than it actually is. There are a couple of like pink leaning shades in this one, but it's actually more of a mauvish brown color story, and I actually very much enjoyed the quality, and I was very surprised again how good quality Moira manages to do, considering that these only cost around 24 euros, which is quite of a good deal considering what other eyeshadow is available in European drugstores. Then the two from Morphe. I wasn't such a big fan of this new Morphe formula. I did discuss on my review video that I do think this was okay. It was a different kind of formula they had before, but I don't think it was still such a big improvement that I think maybe some other people who reviewed this said. So first one is this one, Rich Glitch. I did say on my review that if I would have to choose one, I would keep the 6 pans compared to the like bigger palettes they came out in the same range. This one gets to stay, even though again not maybe my favorite quality, but I do actually kind of like this cool tone color story. And then the Outer Spice. I don't think this was the most versatile palette. It's a more of a warm tone brown leaning palette, but again, because I do think this was one of the better palettes from the new range, I did want to keep this one. But I do think these are pretty decent, but I have also, as I said, for example, the Moira palettes, I think they are much better quality for the drugstore prices. Then some sort of Asian beauty brands. I think we have like 1C Beauty and 2K Beauty brands. So this is by Dasique. This ranks relatively high in my half a year ranking for this year, and it is a very beautiful, again, more brown neutral leaning palette. And yeah, this is staying around because I do think the shimmers in this one are sparkly, but they are very smooth, so they aren't chunky. They aren't these sort of glitter adhesive shimmers that we are gonna see on the second palette after this one. But, and just overall a very like, if you're looking for a solid good neutral 9-pan palette at a K-Beauty brand, this is something I would recommend. And then from Rom&nd, I actually do like this one, so which one was this? Better Than Palette 07 Berry Fuchsia, yeah. So this one has one of the glitter adhesive shades, so it's obviously this one over here. So with if you were taking this off your makeup and you're wearing this shade, I would first go with a makeup remover before going to shower and then washing it all over your face, because this is probably going to be one of those formulas that if you don't take it out with a makeup remover first, you're gonna have like shimmer all over your face. But otherwise, I do think a very beautiful, like very neutral in color story, and I do think this was very nice quality. And generally these Rom&nd palettes in this format have been pretty good. Some of them have been better than others, but I did like this one. Then something that I was not impressed with, especially considering the price point. So this was the Flower Nose, and this is the 02 Strawberry Milk palette from their sort of like Teddy Bear Cafe themed collection. So I wasn't such a big fan of the quality of this one. I do think the shimmer shades are quite nice, but especially the matte shades. I did also have another palette that I reviewed along with this one, and I ended up decluttering that one because, as I said, I wasn't that happy with the quality considering the price point of these palettes. But I did want to keep this one around for reference, and I did kind of still like the color story with this one. But especially the matte shades, not that impressed, especially considering that I do think that Asian beauty brands can also do good mattes. Packaging 10 out of 10, but I will need the makeup also inside to work out and not just have pretty packaging. Then some more, I think we have this one and Kiko. So BeautyBay, this is the Desert Haze palette. This one, I'm very, very positively surprised how well this worked out. It's a beautiful, especially fall time color story. I think this is also in terms of like shadow quality one of the better ones BeautyBay has done in a long time, and I would recommend this one if you've been eyeing it. Then the Arttitude palette. This is one of their very big palettes. Let's see, are we gonna get them? Are we gonna get this on frame? Maybe or maybe not. Almost. So this is a full specific color story for me, obviously, because it has the mix of greens and then it has the sort of like neutral brown reddish leaning row on the bottom. One of the few like bigger palettes that I do think the big palette is actually worth it compared to the 16 pan variation that is only exclusively has the green shades. Then the berries one, I'm a huge fan of pink, and that is the only reason I have it in the big version. With this one especially, I think I have said many times, you could do with the 60 pan version and be happy, you don't need this big one. The big one kind of has maybe a bit more purple leaning shades, but you don't need this much pink, but because this is my favorite color story altogether, that is the reason why this gets to stay in my collection. And then we are doing the last of the drugstore, so we have two Kiko Milano palettes. So this was a gift from my friend. This is the Beauty Roar 02 All My Colors palette. I was not happy with the quality, however there is a specific eye look that I like to create with this one, but especially the matte shades in this one did let me down, and that is especially in a smaller palette I would expect all the shades to work out, but not a palette that I would recommend, but because of a travel, like for traveling, this has been very convenient, and I do think the shimmer shade over here is very beautiful. Kiko's holiday palette from 2 years ago, so this was from the holiday premiere collection Dreamy eyeshadow palette. This one on the other hand, very good quality all around. The shimmer formula in this one especially I felt was quite amped up from what we had seen from Kiko before, and I do think the range of matte shades, you kind of have warm tone and cool tone neutral mattes in this one, so this is also staying. It is on the bulkier side, not a fan that they had such a thick packaging for this one, but I do think from quality standpoint this is one of the better ones Kiko has produced in terms of eyeshadow. Next, let's go to the main sort of pile, which are all my sort of indie palettes, and yeah, we have quite a lot. So from Blend Bunny, these are going to be easy, I'm not going to be decluttering any of these. So Longing palette, beautiful cool tone palette. My only complaint about this one was that I did feel that this goes quite deep quite quickly, so even the more mid-tone looking shades ended up being quite of a sort of punchy. The shimmer formula in this one very beautiful. This is the first like Blend Bunny palette that I had from them, which had the sort of upgraded shimmer quality, but not going anywhere since this is a very beautiful cool tone palette. Sickly Sweet, so mine is the original one. They did bring this back in a more condensed down version. I'm happy actually that I did get the bigger variation. One of my sort of all-time favorite pastel palettes in terms of quality, doing these sort of like almost neon leaning pastels. Very difficult to formulate, but these ones you barely have to build them up and they show up, and I'm also happy you have depth with this one, so you can use this as a standalone palette. Then the sort of OG favorite, so this is the Dollhouse palette. Again, a palette that I have actually used a couple of times. Like, not a couple of times, but quite a few times during this year, even though it's beginning to be on the older side. It was originally their, I think, closest thing what they had in terms of neutral palette. I do think the, like, most recent palette that they had launched, which is the sort of, like, cool tone leaning neutral kind of reddish palette, I think that is now actually what I would say officially the like neutral palette, but originally this I think was the closest thing, but like aside from neutral shades we had kind of muted colorful shades also in this one, but this one's still beautiful. Even though the shimmer formula is the older one, I still do enjoy this one, and superb quality. Then from GlossGods, and now a disclaimer, if you have been watching my shorts, I do have a sort of ongoing opening unboxing with the GlossGods advent calendar, so any products that have been in the advent calendar are not going to be included in this one because I want to review them, and then after review we're going to see that if some of it's going to get decluttered after reviewing. But so these are the products that I have had before the advent calendar because I haven't obviously had time to test yet the stuff on the advent calendar. Molten Metals, this was their holiday palette from last year. I actually do think the shimmers in this one, very punchy shimmers. For some people and some lid types, this might already be a bit too much. It is still a very, what I would say, basic neutral palette, but the shimmers are something very, I would say, exceptional because they are just so impactful once you get them on your lid. Then probably my favorite palette ever from the brand, so this is the Vintage Glam palette. I do have one shade in this one, which is the upper sort of golden leaning shade that has been broken, but otherwise, luckily this has survived quite a lot of lot of moving around. I do enjoy this one. It's a very nice sort of neutral purple rosy leaning palette, and the shimmers also in this one are very beautiful. Then I think this one I am gonna declutter. So this one had a bit of an oopsie. I think if you... Was it a declutter video? I was filming some kind of video and I actually literally dropped this during the video. Like there was there was a whole thing during the video that actually ended up dropping this. And this has been, I did try to repair the shades, but as you can see, they are looking pretty, or I would say damaged. So I think I am actually gonna let this one go, because even though I did try to repress the shades, they are not looking that good, and I'm a bit afraid that if I move this a bit wrong, somehow the shades are gonna break all over again. So this is getting decluttered purely because it is quite damaged, and I'm not trusting to keep this around in my drawer because of the fact that it is so damaged. Then the color of the rain, so this was their blue toned all shimmer palette, so these are basically multi or duochromes. I am keeping this one around. There are like, I do actually like to use this occasionally with some of my more matte heavy palettes because of the shimmers in this one, very beautiful. Then from Ensley Reign, so this has been recently reviewed on my channel, so this is the Wolf Moon palette. I got this from Monolith Shop's Black Friday sale. Why is it so blown out? What happened? Something happened with the lighting conditions, I'm a bit unsure. This gets to stay around. It's a more grey leaning cool tone color story. I did enjoy this one. Then the summer palette, so this was their Whispering Woods palette from this summer. Again, a very beautiful color story that I did enjoy a lot. Some of these shimmers were a bit on the chunkier side, so they did crease on me a bit more than what I would like, but I did enjoy this color story a lot. I enjoyed the combination of these murky greens, purples, and then we had a couple of like warmer fun shades as a pop, and the shimmers are very beautiful, so this gets to stay. So this is the Harvest Moon palette, again a palette that has been on my rotation during this year. I still enjoy this even though it's a bit on the murkier side. Shimmers in this one, most of these actually do work out, but this is one of the like better palettes in terms of like Ensley Reign shimmers that don't crease on me that much. Mattes in this one are not my favorite because the mattes are all quite one-toned mattes, so in terms of like matte variety you kind of do sometimes have to pull to other palettes, but the shimmers are beautiful in this one, so this is not going anywhere. And then I think the palette that is, surprisingly, is gonna get decluttered. So this is the Light in Your Eyes palette, and I had such a high expectations for this one, because when you look at it you would think that it's the dreamy, neutral with a twist palette that we did kind of see a lot. So this was, I think, released at the end of last year, which was the season that we saw a lot of palettes that were these neutral palettes with a twist, or spicy neutral palettes, depending like what term you want to use. For some reason, I just couldn't get this to work out. First of all, this had, for some reason, a lot of shimmers that did crease on me, not just a little bit, but quite a lot. And also, secondly, I did feel that something with the combination of the mattes that were included with this one, it just didn't work on me, which is such a shame, because on paper, this looks like an ideal palette for someone like me who especially enjoys their neutral palettes with a twist, and the shimmers also look very beautiful, but there's just something with this palette and with my makeup style, it just didn't work out for some reason, which is pretty surprising because usually Ensley Reign palettes have worked on me pretty well. So this is getting decluttered, and yeah, the only like saving grace perhaps with this one is that I think I got this with a bit of a discount. I think I got this on Monolith Shop's summer sale, so I didn't pay the full price because this is one of the more bigger, more expensive palettes on their line. But yeah, for some reason this palette didn't work out with me. If this has worked out on you, I'm very happy about it, because I do think still as a color story this was very beautiful, but for me this is getting decluttered because I had such a hard time working with this one. And then the palette that is not going anywhere, they have now come out with a Cold Moon Volume 2. I am kind of 50-60, do I want to get it, because it is a more grey leaning cool tone palette. This was more what I was like in my cool tone, meaning it's a more like mauvish leaning cool tone color story. This is beautiful, this is not going anywhere. This is, I think, if I would just have to like have one eyeshadow palette, I think this would be one of the ones that I would say that, okay, I'd be quite content having this around. And you do have a range with this one, because you can get more neutral looks with this one, and then you can get more fun looks. So we shall see if I will be getting the sort of second variation of this one. I think Monolith Shop said that the volume 2 of the Cold Moon palette, it wasn't on their December launch. They actually had the December launch on the day that I'm filming this one. but they said that the Cold Moon 2 is probably not gonna make it until the January. Then from Unearthly, so this is the Dreamer palette. This is one of their more cool tone color stories. This is not going anywhere because again, it's this kind of cool tone color story that I actually like. Then something that I was very surprised at, so this is the High Tent palette. This was their summer palette last year, and this one had a very... The Dreamer palette had a pretty good quality, but this had even better quality. I don't know what they did with this one, but this is not going anywhere. This gets me in such a good mood, and especially for summer, what kind of like summer color story I usually like. This goes quite close to it's this kind of sunset themed color story, so this is not also going anywhere. Then from Adept Cosmetics, and this is the Unity palette. This has more, what I would say, a very just sparkly shimmer. So Adept is what we know them is from the special shimmers, but this was actually a palette that they just did like nice sparkly. I think there's like one multichrome in this one, but otherwise they are like good normal shimmers. But I actually enjoyed this one. It is a... I think what I categorize this one is a muted spring color story usually. Then the Samarian Sunset, this is not going anywhere. This, I think, is one of the most beautiful, goes to the more like beautiful color stories. It's especially if you like your fall tones, this is wonderful. My camera doesn't quite capture the depth of multichromes and duochromes in this one. The only thing that was a failure of this one, the mattes are not good. I have said this a dozen times that the mattes in this one definitely needed a lot more work, but I can reach for other palettes in terms of mattes because the shimmers in this one alone make it worth keeping in my collection. Then from GlamShop, so this is the Creme de la Creme collection, this, or palette, this was from their holiday collection last year. It's a very nice neutral palette. It is a more, if you like your, like, what I would say, satiny shimmers, I think you would enjoy this one. I like the sort of undertones. GlamShop tends to do neutrals with a, like, undertones that you don't usually necessarily see with other brands, so this is not going anywhere. I did enjoy this quite a lot. And then I think one of their better collections yet, so this is the Violetem collection. This was from their fall launch last year. Again, beautiful. The color story inside beautiful, but also the packaging and overall, I think this is still the best collection that I had seen from GlamShop, I think, to this date. After a pile of 2, here are a pile of 1. So these are all like indie brands that I only have like one palette from. So Lethal Cosmetics, this has been made with their palette maker. This is their older formula. They did recently rebrand, and I think they re-released a lot of their like single shadows, but this has been made with their sort of older singles. But I do actually enjoy this color story, and I do think if you're looking for a good European like indie brand, Lethal is German based, I would recommend them. So from Nomad Cosmetics, if I would give the best packaging of this year, it would go to this particular palette because this is the beautiful. This is the... Was it Fairy Tale Europe? Yeah, Fairy Tale Europe was the palette's name. And here is the color story. I would do say that only thing that I did miss with this one was that I needed like more colorful mattes because all the mattes, as you can see, are neutrals. But this was my first time trying Nomad's formula. I was very impressed with this one. The shimmers especially are very standard show in this palette. And I also do think the matte quality, it's very buttery. It's a, what I would say, a beginner friendly sort of matte formula if you're like entering into indie brands. And Nomad is also pretty decently priced. Like these palettes aren't horrendously expensive, especially if you compare to like Ensley Reign, for example, that is very expensive, or like Unearthly also. On Unearthly, some of Unearthly's palettes are more cheaper, but maybe like Adept's palettes that tend to be also very expensive because they use a lot of special shades. But this one very decently priced, and I do think it's a very beautiful formula. Klarity, so first time that I tried Klarity during this year, this is the Klarity Rain palette. This was again, I think, released actually last year. It's a big palette. The only dot shade is this one, which is such a shame because this is a matte heavy palette, so it was pretty... I didn't like it that one of the shimmers was a dot. This was like a glitter mess to use. It looks like it's a pressed shimmer, but it's like more like, well, I would say like, feels almost like loose glitters when you try to apply it. But if you ignore one shimmer shade, the matte shades work beautifully, other shimmer shades work beautifully, and this gets to stay around. Glaminatrix Nearly Natural, very beautiful, and this sort of like was the... I had the Rich Romantic previously, and with that one I had a lot of issues with the shimmers. This one sort of like, for me, made Glaminatrix, again, a brand that I wanted to try more, because with this one, no issues with the shimmers. These are one of the like smoothest, most sparkliest in the shimmers, and I have always said that I think a lot of eyelids would again benefit from these shimmers, because they are the kind of shimmers that are very sparkly, but they don't actually cause any textures, and they stay put all day. This was, in terms of longevity, one of the best, I think, indie palettes that I have tried during this year. Then something for bellabeautébar. This is the Dead Roses palette. It was their Valentine's palette last year, but they brought it back during this year. So I wasn't so in love with this particular brand, at least based on trying this one palette, which could be also that it's not maybe the brand's fault. It can be that their newer palettes are maybe better. But while I do think the shimmers are beautiful and the mattes are beautiful, the mattes kinda ended up blending together, which meant that especially with a color story like this one, it meant that you didn't get as many like diverse looks as you would think when you look at this. The shimmers are, some of them are the more chunkier ones, so some of them do crease on me, but I do want to keep this around because I still do like this kind of like a on-the-nose Valentine's Day color story. But let's just say that considering especially that bellabeautébar's palettes are quite expensive generally, and because I wasn't just maybe in love with this one, that's maybe the main reason I haven't gotten more palettes from them, but this will get to stay around. Something that I did enjoy, so this is the Arttitude Ink and Roses. This was their Valentine's palette during this year. And I actually did enjoy, I was especially surprised about the matte quality. I think this matte quality is very close to Cosmic Beauty's matte quality. Some of the shimmers I did have creasing issues with, which was surprising because when you look at it, it kind of maybe looks that maybe this one and this shimmer could be the one like kind of shimmers that crease, but also with the other ones I had the issue that they creased a little bit, so that was a bit disappointing, but I do want to keep this around because I kind of like this grungy Valentine's color story this has going towards it, and also, as I said, the matte quality was beautiful. Then from Gourmande Girls, so this is the Warrior Wear Pink. This is the Serious Auto collaboration palette. This is quite old at this point. I think it's been now quite many years since this was launched. I actually like this a lot, and this is the palette that made me want to try more Gourmande Girl palettes, but then I tried the Peach palette during last year, and I wasn't such a big fan of the quality of that one, so that is the reason why I haven't been buying any more palettes from them, at least so far. And then lastly, we're gonna go through the sort of big piles of like indie brands that I have more than one or two palettes from. So first one is Glamlight. So this is the Garfield palette, and I think many people say that this is pretty underrated. I would have to agree. I think this is very beautiful, like very good quality considering the price point, and especially the shimmers in this one, very impactful, very like shiny. So if you're somehow able to still find this and you like your warm tone neutral color stories, I would actually get this one. And as I said, in terms of price point, I don't know how the Glamlight does it, but this goes to the better palettes. Then we have the Twilight collaboration. While I am definitely not a Twilight fan, so this is the sort of Team Jacob palette, but I am a fan of the color story. So this is actually more maybe cool tone leaning color story than the sort of palette initially gives out, and I have to say again, I don't know how they do it with the price point. This is one of the like better, like I have tried my fair share of Glamlight palettes, and this seemed that there was even something more like upgraded with this one, because the shimmers were so sparkly, they were so smooth, the mattes worked out very well, and yeah, I think if you're looking for like, I think I forgot to include this in my fall ranking, because I think this, especially for fall time, this would be an ideal color story, but I think I just forgot to include this one. But I'm gonna say afterwards, in terms of especially fall neutral palettes, this would be something that I would warm-heartedly recommend. Then the Betty Boop palette, so this was their Valentine's release a few years ago. Again, very beautiful, nice sparkly shimmers, and then we have this sort of mauvish tones and then some red tones included in this one. I also did include this in my sort of recent Christmas favorites video, because I do think for Christmas time this also kind of has the colors going for it, so this is not going anywhere. Then the Willy Wonka sort of palette, so this was their collaboration with, Wonka Bar palette, so this was one of their collab palettes again. I think I did enjoy this one, but I don't think this is as good quality as the three other palettes that I've shown. I think this goes to the okay quality, and I do kind of like the sort of combination of neutrals and then the sort of like purple tones and some of the shimmers, but I think I am gonna let this one go, because while I do think it's a nice quality palette, I'm not gravitating towards this one, and I don't think it's as good as the three others that I showed before are this one. Then next let's go to the P.Louise because there are some bulky things in this one. So this is not going anywhere. This was from their wedding collection this year. So this is the Bound by the Stars quad, and there are actually like more of these quads, but at least currently you can't buy them individually. You have to buy them in a set, which is kind of shame because I actually think this is very beautiful quality. It's a very nice peachy palette, so this is not going anywhere. From their holiday collection this year, not this year, from holiday collection last year, but you are able to still get this one. So this is the On The Pull eyeshadow palette, and in this one you have a highlighter and 4 neutral shades. Again, very beautiful quality, especially the shimmers have been improved from what they maybe had previously. So this is not going anywhere. I actually do enjoy having this in my collection. Then I think the palette that is gonna get decluttered, so this is the Behind the Veil palette, and this was first of all quite a lot of more warm tone than it actually kind of looked on their website. And I think secondly, why I'm decluttering this one is that while the shimmers and mattes are beautiful, but this has a lot of these cream shades, and unfortunately for me the cream shades cause the eyeshadows to crease. They don't help with the longevity of the shadows at all, and because there are so many cream shades, because basically every column here, like all of these zeros have one cream shade included, it's quite a lot of like unusable shades for me, so that is the reason why I'm letting this one go. Then there's sort of like book style holiday palette from last year, so this is the Sweet Escape, and this has the, how am I gonna show this so it so it has the like one layer of eyeshadows, then we have the cheek products. This is very hard to show on the camera. Then we have the cream like bronzing products. This is the particular page that I'm pretty concerned about because these are gonna expire at some point, and then it's gonna be also pretty hard taking this particular section out without breaking the palette. And then we have the section of highlighters. These are very beautiful. I am keeping this one around. I do actually like the eyeshadow shades, and I do actually like generally also like the cheek products. I'm just not a fan of having like cream cheek products in these big like multi-purpose palettes, but this is staying even though it is very bulky and inconvenient to store. Then the sort of like blue palette, so If Looks Could Chill, this was on their budget boxes during a couple of years ago. I don't have these sort of monochromatic blue palettes. Others in my collection. I actually do enjoy the quality of this one. So it has the one layer over here, and then we have these ones over here. So this is not going anywhere. Not a color story that I gravitate towards daily, but it's very convenient having this sort of one all blue palette in my collection. And then the last two are my sort of like all-time favorite brands from indies. Probably if you've been watching my channel for a long time, this is no surprise. So, Oden's Eye first. This is the Jewels and Gem palette, not going anywhere, beautiful, cool toned color story. Still, I think the most neutral color story they have ever come out with. Well, I think a lot of people would not say this is a neutral palette, but I think this is the closest thing they have for a neutral palette. I am still waiting for them to come out with a sort of like a neutral palette with a twist. This was probably what they would do, but if you've been looking to something close to a neutral palette, I would recommend this one. Then this is the Merry Christmas palette. This is not going anywhere. This is a all-time favorite, and I got the ones that was in the formula when this originally launched, so this has one of their like best formulas to this date that I think they have produced. Then we have the Winter Alva palette, so this was from their sort of 4 palette releases they came out during the fall time, so this is a cool tone purple leaning color story, and you also have some deeper shades over here. This is not going anywhere. I did say on my review that this is okay quality, just like the sort of fall palette that we're gonna see later, but not the best they have produced, but this is an okay Oden's Eye quality. Silver Bliss, this was their holiday collection last year. This is a more, what I'd say, red tone, grungy holiday color story. Maybe this one too close to a neutral, even though I do think it's quite red heavy to be a neutral palette, but this one is also not going anywhere. I actually do like the color story. Then the Autumn Alva palette, so this came out with the winter palette. For me, it's kind of 50-60. Is it a fall or is it actually more of a spring color story? I did include this in my sort of fall palette favorites, but I do think I'm also gonna put this in my spring sort of like favorites, because there is a lot of like what I would say spring tone shades in this one. Then the Angelica Nyqvist and Hella collaboration. This is not going anywhere. We all know this is my absolute favorite color store, like favorite palette from the brand altogether to this date. And the quality of also this one, it's one of the like better quality ones that they did come out with. The pair to the Merry Christmas palette, so this is the Christmas Eve palette, not going anywhere. This is one of my favorite cool tone color stories, and again has the very superb quality that has been maybe a bit amiss with the brand in their like recent year launches. Then the Rosy Jingles palette, this I think if they would have launched this during springtime, I think people would have gone gaga over it. For a Christmas release, it was a bit strange, but I did include this, I think, I did include this in, for example, in this year's spring favorites sort of like video, because obviously I'm thinking of like Easter chicks and Easter eggs and just spring flowers when I'm looking at this one. It's a very pretty like spring tone palette. Only like negative thing is that it doesn't have a lot of depth to it, and also like, for example, this kind of shade that you would think brings more depth, it's this very strange cream to powder formula that's just very stiff to work with, and it's just not nice shadow to sort of like have in this palette, especially when you consider that it's the only like deeper shade and it doesn't very like work out. But otherwise, this is a very pretty color story, but maybe just not a Christmas color story, at least for me. And then I think I am gonna declutter this one. So this is the little ghost palette. So Angelica Nyqvist did do a second collaboration with Odensai. I think it was now, was it over like 2 years ago now, the Halloween thing. So I am gonna declutter this because this is just not a color story that I vibe with. Mainly because it is this like very blue-purple heavy, and it has the kind of blue-purple tones that I don't gravitate towards that much. So while I do think that the quality of this one, there was nothing wrong with it, but I have like tried to use this, but it's just very difficult for me to like make cohesive look. So that is the reason why this is getting decluttered. And lastly, to Cosmic Beauty, that I think that is a brand that maybe has dethroned Odensai as my sort of #1 brand, and that the main reason has been because Oden's eye quality has been a bit hit and miss in their more like recent year releases, and Cosmic Beauty has been doing more consistent work. There is one Cosmic Beauty palette on the way, so I did order the Starlight Society palette that came out, finally launched individually at the end of November, but that is still, the package has just arrived in our country, so I think I might be getting it during the next week, but because obviously I still haven't got the palette, I haven't had time to review it, so that is the reason why it's not included. So this is not going anywhere. This is something that I did review on my channel quite recently. I got this on Monolith Shop Black Friday sale, so this is the holiday palette from last year. Beautiful, wonderful quality, and I don't want it took almost a year for me to make the decision to order this one, but I got it with a good discount, and I do think for being on nose Christmas palette, very beautiful. This is the Delicious Delights palette. This is their sort of pastel, colorful palette. The shimmer shades in this one are maybe not as sparkly as some of their newer shimmer formulas, but still a very beautiful or like colorful palette, and especially considering that some of these pastel tones with some brands can be a bit harder to formulate, and still, but they did manage to do very good work with this one, so this is not going anywhere. Okay, so when I said that Cosmic Beauty has been very consistent with their quality, this is the only palette where I have kind of went like that, what happened, which is such a shame because this is the Lovers, but this was their spring launch during this year, and this was actually like their Valentine's launch. So I think in terms of color story, I think I've said this many times, if all of these shades would have worked impeccably, this would probably be ranking as my sort of #1 palette to this year. However, I had a lot of issues with these pastels, which is very odd considering that the Delicious Delights, this one that I just showed, with this one, no issues with the colorful shades. With this one, with quite a lot of the pastel, I do, like, my issue was that I had to build them up quite a lot, which is such an odd thing, because Cosmic Beauty, they started out with this sort of more colorful palettes that had these pastel shades, and they managed to do the pastel shades very well. But with this one, I just had a lot of issues. With the mid-tone shades and the deeper shades, no issues. This has the like best shimmer formula so far that I have seen with the brand. This had these very sort of extra sparkly shimmers that I don't think the brand had done in any of their previous palettes. But as I said, since a lot of the matte shades with this one are working, it's such a shame, because otherwise this would probably be one of the top palettes that I have tried doing this year. But I still do like, once I build the pastels and I combine them with the other shades, I get beautiful looks with this one. But it's such a strange thing that, at least for me, the pastel shades in this one were a miss. Royal Rose, this is their very first palette, and is it time for me to let this one go? I have used this was on my rotation during summer. There's nothing particularly wrong with this one. The shimmer formula is definitely their older shimmer formula. I think I'm still gonna keep this for 1 more year. Yeah, I think I'm gonna have this like one last hooray probably during next summer, because for me this is a very summer-esque color story. But with this one, while the past, like, not the pastels, like, okay, there's like 1 or 2, but the matte shades in general in this one work very well. They are very like, there's like nothing wrong with this one. The shimmers, definitely you can see from them that they're sort of older formula, but I'm gonna still keep it around. But I think during next year this might be getting decluttered, because I think it's not getting as much use as their other palettes. Then the palette that is probably competing still to being the top palette from the brand that I've tried and altogether from this year. So this is the Neutrals palette. My brother actually got this to me as a Christmas present during last year, but I didn't get to try this out until the beginning of this year. Yeah, this is wonderful. I know for some people this is probably the most boring thing ever, but for me, just looking at this, there's something so inspiring. And yeah, in the Lovers palette, the shimmer shades are just a bit more sparklier than the shades in this one, but altogether, unlike with the Lovers palette, I didn't have any issues with any of the matte shades. Everything just worked out very well. So yeah, we are still gonna see, because after I've done this declutter, in 2 weeks time you're gonna see my end of the year ranking of all the eyeshadow palettes I tried during this year. We shall see that if this did keep its #1 spot that it had during the sort of half a year ranking that I did during summer. But for me, this is a palette that, a neutral palette that seems to inspire me endlessly. It's just so beautiful to just look at. Then there's sort of like a palette that for the longest time was actually my favorite palette from them, but I do think this has been dethroned by now. So this is the Muse palette. It is still a very beautiful grungy color story. This used to be the most neutral thing they had in their collection. Then they came out with the Neutrals palette. So now this is what I would say more of a grungy, colorful palette that has also some neutrals in it. It's still a very beautiful color story, but just like maybe the sort of like Royal Rose palette, the formula is kind of starting to show its age. The shimmers are again nice shimmers, but they aren't the more sparkler shimmers that they have in their newer palettes. But I would still say that if you've been eyeing this one, and if they still have this, because this might be one of the palettes that they have said that they might discontinue at some point. So if you still want to get this and you are able to get it, I would get it maybe sooner than later. And I think you're still gonna enjoy this one, but just be aware that if you have tried some of their newer palettes, the shimmer formula in this one is the older one, but I still do think it is a very beautiful color story. I know it's not aesthetically the most pleasing thing to just pile the palettes in front of the camera, but so sort of to give you the overview of what I ended up decluttering. So I think this wasn't the most most throughout declutter, but there were like definitely things that it was just time for them to sort of get out of my drawers. But I think this also shows, because these days I do a lot of decluttering during the middle of the year, just after like reviewing the palettes, and because I usually know after reviewing the palette on my channel that do I actually want to keep it around, but still a lot of things do end up staying, and it's just always good to sort of have this mindset that you have to let go of things that you just don't get use out of. And also just like things also do expire. Eyeshadow doesn't expire as quickly, but definitely after some time with some formulas. Some formulas last better than others with the test of time. It was sort of my end of the year declutter. If you like this video, push the like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell button if you want to get notifications for my future content. You can also find me with the same nickname, Makeup Hedgehog on Instagram. I'll be back in another video. Bye bye!